There are moments in life when something feels so irresistibly good, so deeply satisfying, that we silence every warning bell echoing in our minds. We say, just this once. We justify. We indulge. And in that fleeting rush, we taste pleasure that feels almost divine. But what if that sweetness hides a poison? What if the very thing that makes you feel most alive is quietly killing the soul? Today, we're peeling back the veil on the darkest truths, the acts we normalize, even celebrate, but that carry eternal consequences. You'll never look at pleasure the same way again. What feels pleasurable during the act, but condemns your soul. That's what we're about to uncover. If you're ready for truth, subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and turn on notifications. Then tell me in the comments, can something truly be good if it leads you to destruction? It begins subtly, the small compromise, a whisper in your conscience that says, it's not that serious, the look that lingers too long, the touch you justify, the website you swear you'll never visit again, the conversation that crosses an invisible line. You tell yourself, everyone does it. You laugh it off, call it harmless, but there's a reason you feel the need to hide it. There's a reason it stings in the silence of night. Because deep down, you know, pleasure is not always innocent. Sometimes it is the bait on a spiritual trap. It dazzles your senses, clouds your reasoning, and opens the door to something ancient, something destructive. And here's the cruel twist. The more pleasurable it feels, the more it can blind you to the damage it's causing. Not to your body, perhaps, but to your soul. Let's talk plainly. There are acts, actions, choices, and habits that feel intensely gratifying in the moment. They touch your deepest cravings, scratch the itch no one else sees, and provide a rush that feels like euphoria. These moments are personal, private, sometimes hidden in the dark corners of our lives, but they're not without consequence. Take lust, for example, one of the most powerful, intoxicating forces known to mankind. It masquerades as love. It wears the mask of affection, but it doesn't care for your heart. It only wants your surrender. The images we consume, the fantasies we indulge, the people we use for temporary escape, they leave imprints, not just in the brain, in the soul. You might walk away feeling lighter, more alive, but later a shadow follows. Guilt, emptiness, shame. That's not coincidence. That's spiritual residue. And yet, this isn't about judgment. It's about awareness. So many of us are caught in cycles we didn't even choose. Trauma, loneliness, heartbreak, rejection, these things leave gaps in the heart. And pleasure becomes the quickest patch, the fastest fix. But when the pleasure fades, the gaps widen. And so we go back for more, not because we're bad people, but because we're hurting, searching, starving. This is how destruction disguises itself as desire, and it's not just lust. Let's talk about pride, that glorious feeling of being right, being superior, being admired. It's addictive. It fuels our identity, makes us feel powerful, in control. We compare ourselves to others, not to grow, but to feel better. We win arguments to prove our worth. We reject advice because we crave the illusion of perfection. Pride, too, feels good in the moment, but it isolates the soul. It hardens the heart. It separates us from others and from God. Or what about vengeance? That rush of taking back control when someone wrongs you. You finally say what you wanted to say. You expose them, embarrass them, or silently cut them off, punishing them with your absence. It feels so justified, like justice, like balance. But bitterness doesn't cleanse the soul. It infects it. What you thought was power becomes a prison, because while you're holding on to anger, the person who hurt you still has control. Then there's greed. It doesn't always look like piles of gold or luxury cars. Sometimes it's subtle, the obsession with status, the relentless chase for more followers, more recognition, more validation. You sacrifice your peace, your relationships, your values. And for what? for an applause that never lasts, for approval from people who don't even know the real you. Each of these things, lust, pride, vengeance, greed, they all feel good during the act. And each one, if left unchecked, erodes your soul, slowly, silently. Now you might be thinking, but I'm human. I make mistakes. Doesn't everyone do these things sometimes? Yes, but the danger isn't in the stumble. It's in staying down. The problem isn't falling into temptation. It's building a home there. Just because something feels natural doesn't mean it's harmless. Not everything that feels right is right. This is where we must learn to separate the emotion of pleasure from the truth of purpose. Because your soul has a blueprint. It wasn't designed to feed endlessly on dopamine hits and ego trips. It was designed for something deeper, something eternal. And when you feed it the wrong fuel, it doesn't just get tired, it starts to rot. That's why some people feel empty even when they have it all. The pleasures they pursued left them spiritually bankrupt. And here's where it gets even more sobering. There are forces in this world, call them spiritual, psychological, energetic, that thrive on your spiritual blindness. They profit from your detachment. The more you numb yourself with pleasure, the less sensitive you become to conviction, to truth, to God. And that numbness is the beginning of condemnation, not because God stops loving you, but because you stop hearing him. You lose the signal. That's why this conversation matters, because you're not just a mind, not just a body. You are a soul, and your soul has enemies. The enemy isn't just out to hurt your feelings, he's out to silence your calling. And he often doesn't do it with fear, but with pleasure. He doesn't show up as a monster, he shows up as a fantasy, a dream, a shortcut, and by the time you realize it's a trap, you're already wrapped in chains. But here's the truth no one talks about. Your pleasure can be holy. Your desires aren't evil, they're misplaced. You weren't meant to be numb, you were made to feel joy, peace, love. But those things come from alignment, not indulgence, from purpose, not escape. So the question becomes, what are you chasing and what is it costing you? If you've ever felt that haunting emptiness after doing something that felt good in the moment, you're not alone. That emptiness is not your enemy. It's your soul's way of crying out. It's the warning light on the dashboard. You can ignore it, cover it, or silence it with more distractions, but eventually something will break. And I get it. Some of you are thinking, but it's too late for me. I've already gone too far. Let me tell you something. There is no act, no addiction, no shameful secret that is beyond redemption. The very fact that you're here, watching this, means your soul is still listening. And if it's listening, it can still be healed. You were not created to be a prisoner of your own cravings. You were made for freedom. You were made to love with a pure heart, to feel pleasure without guilt, to enjoy life without compromising your integrity. That kind of life isn't a fantasy. It's a fight, but it's worth it. And it starts by asking the hard questions. What feels good, but leaves me empty? What have I normalized that's slowly killing me? What part of me is still trying to fill a spiritual hole with earthly pleasures? Let this video be your mirror, not to shame you, but to awaken you. And if you're still watching, I know you're ready to go deeper. So do this right now, like this video if it's resonating with you. Subscribe to this channel. We talk about the truths most people are afraid to say out loud, and I want to hear from you in the comments. What's one pleasure you've struggled with that seemed harmless, but hurt you in the end? Or maybe you're still in that battle right now. Be honest, be raw. Your story could help someone else find clarity. And if you've been living with the question, why do I feel so disconnected even when I'm doing everything that's supposed to make me happy? Then stay with me, because we're just getting started. Have you ever asked yourself why something so pleasurable can feel so tormenting afterward? Why the thing that ignites every nerve in your body, that gives you the feeling of being unstoppable, can also leave you waking up hollow, almost ashamed? haunted by a whisper you try so hard to silence. That whisper, it's your soul. It's trying to get your attention, because your soul remembers who you were before the world taught you to numb yourself. We live in a society that tells us to chase pleasure at all costs. That self-expression means self-indulgence, that if it feels good, it must be good. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. Not every desire deserves a stage. Not every urge needs a microphone. Some cravings are born from wounds, from trauma, from rejection. And feeding those cravings doesn't heal you. It just keeps you sick. Think about that. When was the last time you truly felt peace after indulging in a secret habit? When was the last time pleasure brought you lasting satisfaction, not just momentary escape? You see, pleasure is like fire. Controlled, it brings warmth, light, beauty. But unrestrained, it consumes everything in its path, your purpose, your relationships, your sense of worth. And we don't just lose things externally, we lose ourselves internally. Let's talk about the soul for a minute. Not as a religious concept, but as a real part of you. Your soul is your core. It's the compass of your being. And when you go against it, when you silence it for too long, it doesn't scream. It fades. That's why some people walk around alive, but completely dead inside. They smile, they work, they scroll, but they're numb. Because the soul has been neglected for so long, it no longer knows how to speak. And what caused that silence? Pleasure without purpose. Pleasure without boundaries. Pleasure that masqueraded as fulfillment, but turned into spiritual decay. You might be wondering, but if pleasure is so dangerous, am I supposed to live a life of deprivation? That's the twisted narrative the enemy wants you to believe. That choosing soul over sensation means choosing misery. But it's a lie, a complete inversion of truth. Because true joy doesn't leave you feeling guilty. Real connection doesn't ask you to compromise your values. Authentic intimacy doesn't need secrecy. We've been trained to believe that spiritual living is about denial. But what if it's about alignment, about finding a version of pleasure that doesn't cost you your peace, that doesn't come with regret, shame, or fragmentation? Let's take relationships as an example. How often do people confuse sexual attraction for love? They jump into bed before they've even spoken about values, goals, or faith, and it feels thrilling. But what happens after the rush fades? Miscommunication, emotional detachment, breakups that leave you wondering why it hurt so much when it wasn't that serious, because your soul was involved, even when you pretended it wasn't. That's the thing about sex, about lust, about intimate encounters. They imprint on your soul, even if it's casual, even if you swear it meant nothing. The body remembers, the mind replays it, and the soul quietly collects the debt. Some debts are emotional, others are spiritual. But let's step outside the realm of intimacy for a moment. What about the pleasures of control, of manipulation, of bending others to your will, whether through charm, intellect, or emotional pressure? It feels good to have power, to feel one step ahead. But there's a reason manipulators never feel safe, because they know what they're capable of, and they fear someone might do the same to them, or the pleasure of being envied. Social media is filled with it. We post not to share, but to flaunt, to project a life that makes others pause and wish. That admiration becomes a drug, a silent addiction, and we build our identities on likes and shares. But what happens when the likes stop? When someone else gets more attention? Suddenly the very thing that gave us pleasure becomes the reason we spiral into comparison and insecurity. Is it really worth it? And then there's the pleasure of the forbidden. Doing something simply because you're not supposed to, because it gives you a sense of rebellion, a taste of danger. Maybe it's the thrill of sneaking around. Maybe it's breaking the rules because you're tired of being the good one. But what starts as liberation often turns into bondage. You become chained to the very things you once used to prove your freedom. This is the paradox of sinful pleasure. It promises you freedom while quietly building your prison. And it doesn't just affect you. The ripple effect is real. The decisions we make in secret echo into every part of our lives. A lie told here becomes a fractured relationship there. An affair hidden now becomes a family destroyed later. A business deal made unethically for short-term gain becomes long-term regret. You can't separate the act from the consequence forever. Eventually, the soul demands reconciliation. But here's the part most people skip over, because it's hard to face. What you tolerate in the dark will always manifest in the light. That's not a threat. That's a law. You can hide your pleasure from people, but you cannot hide it from your soul. And your soul will always find a way to cry out, through anxiety, through depression, through insomnia, through unexplained bitterness or dissatisfaction. That's why some of the most outwardly successful people are also the most internally broken. Their souls are screaming for attention, and maybe yours is too. So what now? Do we live in fear, in shame, in self-condemnation? Absolutely not. This video isn't about guilt, it's about awakening, because there is another way, a better way. But you won't find it in another dopamine hit. You won't find it in the next hookup, the next drink, the next purchase, the next lie. You'll only find it when you confront the truth, that some pleasures are designed to destroy you, not because God wants to punish you, but because your enemy wants to own you. The good news, you can take it all back. Your soul doesn't have to stay in exile. You can reclaim your peace, your purpose, your clarity, but it starts with a decision to stop chasing temporary pleasure at the expense of eternal identity. So here's what I want you to do. If this message is hitting home, take a second to like this video. It helps the channel reach more people who need to hear this. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, because we go deep here. We talk about what most people are afraid to confront. And drop a comment below and answer this. What's one thing you've pursued for pleasure that ended up costing you more than you expected? Let's have the real conversation. Your insight might be the lifeline someone else needs. And let me leave you with this thought to wrestle with. Are you in control of your pleasures, or are they in control of you? I'll give you a moment to sit with that. You're probably feeling something right now, a mix of discomfort, maybe conviction, maybe even clarity. That's not by accident. That's the sound of your soul waking up. And it's powerful, because once your soul begins to stir, it becomes much harder to go back to sleep. You start to notice the lies you used to believe. You begin to feel the weight of things you once shrugged off. And suddenly, you're not okay with being numb anymore. This is the beginning of freedom. But here's the reality most people avoid. The path to freedom starts with discomfort. You have to be willing to feel what you've tried to escape, the pain, the loss, the consequences of unchecked pleasure. It's not easy. That's why so many avoid it. They'd rather stay distracted. But avoidance doesn't bring healing, it just delays the breakdown. You can only run from your soul for so long. Let's look deeper at one of the most seductive forms of pleasure, escapism. It's not just about drugs or alcohol. It's about anything we use to avoid our pain. Binge-watching shows, scrolling for hours, shopping for things we don't need, hooking up with strangers to feel wanted. Escapism gives us the illusion of control, but in truth, it's the exact opposite. It's surrender. It's giving up your power, one little hit at a time. And the worst part, escapism doesn't erase the pain, it compounds it. Because when the pleasure wears off, the pain is still there, now layered with regret, shame, or confusion. It's a cycle that keeps you stuck. You escape to feel better, only to feel worse, which makes you want to escape even more. It's a loop designed to drain your life. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it gets to imagine life outside of it. But here's something you might not expect to hear. The enemy isn't just outside of you. Sometimes it's the voice within, the one that tells you you've already gone too far. There's no coming back. This is just who you are now. That voice is a liar. You are not defined by your worst decision. You are not stuck in a cycle just because you've been in it for a long time. Your soul is more resilient than you think, but it needs you to choose truth over comfort. And truth is uncomfortable. It confronts you. It challenges your narratives. It asks you to lay down the masks you've worn, but it's the only thing that sets you free. Think of it this way. You wouldn't clean a wound by pretending it's not infected. You'd open it, clean it, disinfect it. It would hurt, yes, but that pain would be healing. The same goes for your soul. You don't heal by hiding. You heal by facing what you've been avoiding. What are you avoiding? What pleasure have you been using to mask your pain? What secret habits have you justified because they offer relief? It's okay to be honest here. In fact, it's necessary, because honesty is the doorway to deliverance. As long as you keep pretending everything's fine, you'll never deal with what's really breaking you. And make no mistake, every unchecked pleasure has a consequence. Not because God wants to punish you, but because your soul wasn't made to carry certain things. You were made for truth. You were made for peace. You were made for purpose. And every time you choose counterfeit pleasure over authentic purpose, you delay the life you were born to live. Let's talk about identity for a moment, because at the root of most self-destructive pleasure is a distorted view of self. If you believe you're worthless, you'll act like it. If you think you're too far gone, you'll settle for anything that numbs you. But when you remember who you are, when you truly grasp that your life has meaning, you stop tolerating the things that rob you. You start protecting your soul. You stop handing it over to anyone who offers you a fleeting thrill. And maybe you've never heard this before, but let me say it plainly. You are worth protecting. Your mind, your body, your spirit. You are sacred, not in a religious, lofty way, but in a real, grounded way. Your existence matters. Your choices matter. And every time you indulge in something that violates your soul, a part of you knows it. That's why the pleasure never lasts. That's why the guilt always follows. You weren't made for shallow highs. You were made for deep, soul-level joy. But you have to stop settling. Stop settling for relationships that feel good in the moment, but leave you broken. Stop settling for habits that promise relief, but deliver regret. Stop settling for a life that looks fine on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. You deserve more, not because you're entitled, but because you're designed for it. Your Creator didn't build you for bondage. He built you for beauty, for growth, for truth. But truth takes work, and that's where most people stop. They don't want the work. They want the shortcut, the hack, the secret to instant happiness. Let me save you some time. There is no shortcut to wholeness. You have to go through the fire. You have to sit with your brokenness. You have to unlearn the lies and relearn the truth. And most importantly, you have to forgive yourself. Because holding on to shame is just another form of self-punishment. And punishment doesn't lead to transformation. Only love does. Love for your soul. Love for your future. Love for your Creator. So what's the next step? Start small. Identify one area of your life where you've been chasing destructive pleasure. Just one. You don't have to fix everything today, but you do need to start somewhere. Maybe it's what you watch, who you text, what you listen to when no one's around, what you do when you're alone and hurting. Bring that area into the light, not to be shamed, but to be healed. Because healing starts with exposure. Darkness only grows when it's hidden, but when you expose it to light, it loses its power. And here's a truth you can anchor in. You are not alone in this. Millions of people are battling the same thing, craving freedom, longing for peace, trying to break cycles that have held them hostage for years. So don't believe the lie that you're the only one. You're not weird. You're not broken beyond repair. You're human. And being human means needing grace, needing truth, needing people who won't let you settle for destruction in the name of pleasure. And that's what this space is for. So take a moment right now, like this video if this is speaking to your soul, subscribe to this channel if you're ready to go deeper into the hard but healing truths, and drop a comment below. What's one truth you've been avoiding that you know it's time to face? You never know who you'll encourage just by being honest. And if you're wondering, but what if I try to change and I fail? Let me remind you, failure isn't the end. It's part of the process. Transformation isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong, other days you'll fall. That's okay. What matters is that you get back up, that you don't let shame silence your progress, that you don't confuse a bad moment with a bad identity. You are not your lowest decision. You are not your worst habit. You are not the sum of your past mistakes. You are a soul still becoming, still growing, still healing. So keep going. And as you do, pay attention. Pay attention to the subtle shifts. The way you start to feel more present, more connected, more alive. That's not coincidence. That's what happens when you start choosing purpose over pleasure, truth over temptation, wholeness over escapism. It's not easy, but it's worth it. You are worth it. There comes a moment in every journey where you must choose between comfort and change. That moment often comes quietly. No fanfare, no lightning from the sky. Just a still, small moment where your soul whispers, "This isn't who you are." Maybe you hear that voice late at night after the pleasure fades and the silence feels heavier than ever. Or maybe it comes after a confrontation, when someone calls you out, or worse, when you disappoint yourself. But no matter when it comes, you know it's real. And when you ignore it, you pay for it. Not with money, but with moments you can't get back. With relationships you slowly ruin. With potential you bury under years of denial. Because here's what most people never realize: unchecked pleasure doesn't just take away your peace, it robs you of your future. Yes, your future. Every decision you make from a place of broken pleasure shapes the story you're living, the people you attract, the opportunities you miss, the integrity you compromise, and the scariest part, you don't notice it happening, not right away. You think you're just enjoying life, just doing what everyone else does, just letting off steam. But 5 years pass, then 10, and one day you wake up and realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. That's what sin does. Not in a fire and brimstone way, in a practical, tangible way. It slowly separates you from who you were born to be. Let's talk real examples. Maybe it's a man who's been watching pornography since he was a teenager. It started as curiosity, then it became habit, then addiction. Now he can't connect emotionally with real partners. He's numb, detached. He craves the rush, but dreads the aftermath. His relationships suffer, but he tells himself it's just a phase. Or a woman who gets into relationships she knows are toxic, but the attention feels so good. Being wanted feels like love. Even when it hurts, it's better than feeling invisible. So she stays. She compromises. She silences the part of her that knows she deserves better. Or the young professional who cheats the system, just a little, a lie here, a shortcut there. He tells himself, everyone does it, but each compromise takes him further from his integrity. Until one day, success doesn't even feel like success. It feels like fraud. These are not rare stories. They're everywhere, maybe even in your life. And at the root of them all is the same pattern. Pleasure now, pain later. So the question becomes, how long will you trade long-term peace for short-term pleasure? At what point do you say, enough? Because here's the truth. Until you're honest about the cost of your pleasure, you will never step into your calling. You might achieve things. You might be popular, wealthy, admired, but you will never be whole. And wholeness is what your soul craves most. More than success, more than love, more than pleasure. Wholeness. That deep, unshakable sense that you are living in alignment with your Creator, your purpose, and your highest self. But you don't get there by accident. You get there by choosing differently, by waking up each day and saying, I want more than what feels good. I want what is good. And sometimes what is good will hurt, it will stretch you, it will demand things from you. But that pain is the doorway to transformation. Think of a caterpillar. If it refuses to struggle in the cocoon, it never becomes a butterfly. It dies with wings it never used. Some of us are dying with wings we've never used, because the struggle scares us, because we'd rather keep numbing than start healing. But healing is always an option. Even now, even after all the things you've done, even after the secrets you swore you'd never tell, even after the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if you've ruined everything. Redemption is still on the table, but you have to choose it. No one can do that for you. Not a preacher, not a partner, not a therapist. They can help, they can guide. But at the end of the day, your soul is yours. You decide whether to feed it or starve it. And right now you have a choice. Keep chasing pleasure that drains you, or start pursuing purpose that fills you. If you've made it this far in the video, I know which one you're leaning toward. And I want to tell you, don't wait for a breakdown to start your breakthrough. You don't need to hit rock bottom to begin again. You can start right now with one honest prayer, one difficult conversation, one step toward the life you know you were meant to live. And when you do, expect resistance, because pleasure fights back. It's loud, seductive, familiar. The enemy of your soul knows exactly which buttons to push, but you're stronger than you think. Strong enough to walk away, strong enough to start over, strong enough to say, I will not let my story end like this. And if you ever doubt that strength, look at the people who've done it, the ones who've walked away from toxic relationships, from addiction, from cycles that kept them small. They're not superhuman. They're just people who got tired of living in pieces. You don't have to wait for permission to become whole. You just have to stop pretending you're fine when you're not. And I get it. Vulnerability is scary, it feels weak, but hiding is what makes you weak. Hiding keeps you stuck. Hiding feeds the shame that chains your soul. When you bring it into the light, whatever it is, it loses power. The shame dies, and you begin to live. So let me ask you, what are you hiding? What's the secret you've never said out loud? What's the pleasure you can't let go of, even though it's destroying you? You don't have to answer out loud, but you do need to answer honestly. Because that honesty might be the first step toward your healing. If this video has stirred something in you, do me a favor, hit that like button. Not for me, for you. Let it be a moment of agreement, a signal that you're ready to confront what needs to change. Subscribe to this channel for more content that doesn't sugarcoat the truth, but speaks it in love. And leave a comment below. What's one pleasure that's been hard to walk away from, and what would it mean for your soul if you finally let it go? You never know who needs to read your story, who needs to know they're not the only one struggling, who needs to believe that freedom is still possible. So let's be that space. Let's be the kind of community that doesn't shame people for their past, but helps them rise into their future. Because healing is not just about you. It's about what your healing unlocks in others. Imagine a version of you fully free from the pleasures that once controlled you. Imagine waking up without guilt. Imagine relationships built on truth, not pretense. Imagine a life where your soul feels alive, not just your senses. It's not a fantasy, it's possible, but it starts now, right here, with a decision. So ask yourself, what is the next right step? Not the perfect step, not the final step, just the next right one. You're still here. That matters more than you know, because it means you've chosen to confront something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You've stared down the uncomfortable truths, the ones that live in the corners of your mind, wrapped in pleasure and layered with shame. And yet here you are, and still listening, still reflecting, still searching. That tells me your soul hasn't given up on you. Maybe you thought this would just be another video, something to watch, then scroll past. But something inside you knows this is bigger, that what's being discussed isn't just abstract, it's your life, your choices, your peace, your future. And that realization is the most important step you could ever take, because awareness is the beginning of transformation, not the end, the beginning. And that transformation, it's not going to be a clean overnight process. It won't be Instagram-worthy or wrapped in pretty words. It's going to be gritty. It's going to be lonely at times. And yes, it's going to hurt, because letting go of what once brought you pleasure, even if it also brought you pain, is a kind of mourning, a kind of death, but it's also the beginning of new life. So let's ask the question most people run from. What do you need to die to in order for your soul to truly live? Maybe it's a habit, one you've carried for years. You've convinced yourself it's manageable, that you can stop any time. But the truth? You've tried. And every time you come back to it, because deep down you're not just addicted to the act, you're addicted to what it makes you forget. Or maybe it's a relationship, one that gives you butterflies and bruises all at once, one where you feel both alive and completely unseen. You justify it because you're afraid of loneliness, but deep down you know this isn't love. It's attachment, it's survival, it's fear dressed up as connection. Or maybe it's a version of yourself you keep pretending to be. The one who always has it together, the one who smiles on cue, who never shows weakness. But when the doors close and the lights go out, that mask gets heavy. And all you really want is permission to be real. This is that permission to be honest, to be raw, to be free, because no one gets healed by hiding. You cannot conquer what you refuse to confront. You cannot be whole while still entertaining the very things that are breaking you. So if you're ready to live a different story, it's time to draw a line, not in anger, not in fear, but in love. Love for the version of you that's still becoming. Love for the people who need you healthy. Love for the purpose you haven't yet stepped into. Because here's what you need to understand. Your healing isn't just for you. It's for everyone you'll impact. Everyone you'll inspire. Everyone who's waiting to see someone rise from the same things they thought were impossible to escape. You get free, and you give others permission to do the same. That's how change happens. That's how legacies are rewritten. So no, this isn't just a video. This is a spiritual intervention, a wake-up call, a reminder that pleasure is not the highest pursuit. Peace is, purpose is, presence is, and those things are not found in the arms of someone who only wants your body. Not in the rush of a secret habit that makes you feel alive for 5 minutes and ashamed for 5 days. Not in the applause of strangers or the praise of people who don't know your soul. They're found in the quiet, in the honest, in the sacred, in the places where you finally stop running. And if that scares you, good. Because fear means you're close to something real, to something holy, to something worth fighting for. So here's the final question I'll leave you with. If nothing changes, where will your soul be a year from now? Still tired, still hiding, still chasing, or will you be free? You get to decide. And that decision starts now, not next week, not after the next failure, not when you feel more ready, right now. So breathe, not to relax, but to reset. And say it, even if it's just in your mind. I want more than pleasure. I want peace. I want more than escape. I want freedom. I want more than temporary satisfaction. I want eternal purpose. Say it again if you need to. Let it echo. Let it plant itself. Let it begin. Because this is the moment your soul has been waiting for. And if you're ready to live that truth, if you're ready to walk this path, not perfectly but intentionally, then join me. Click the like button if this stirred something in you. Not just because you enjoyed it, but because you recognize it's time to change. Subscribe to this channel. We're not here for fluff. We're here for the kind of conversations that transform, the kind that dig deep, the kind that heal. And hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode that could be exactly what your soul needs. But most importantly, Comment below. What's one thing, just one, that you're ready to let go of even if it scares you? Be honest, be real. Someone needs your courage. And if you don't know what to say, just write, "I'm ready." That's enough. Your future self will thank you, and your soul, it already is. Thank you for staying until the end. I see you, I believe in your healing, and I'll see you in the next video.